Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Driven Podcast. My name is Sam Parkinson, once again filling in for the usual Giles Parkinson, who's away out of action on a remote island with no connection to the internet, apparently. So unfortunately, you will be left with me as your host once more. But joining me in the studio is the Driven contributor Tim Eden. Tim, how are you going?
I'm doing well, thanks, Sam. Yeah, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you. And we've also got dialing in, we've got Riz Akhtar, who's a Driven contributor and also the founder of Car Loop. Riz, how are you?
Yeah, going well. Buzzing.
Buzzing.
So much to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about, but we'll have to select what we want to talk about because there is a lot to talk about. But I thought we'd start off just by talking about some of the news of the week and what's been happening in the last couple of weeks in the EV world, but also just what we've been doing. Tim's been driving a couple of vehicles, and we'll be discussing his experience with the Hyundai Insta a little bit later, as well as the Xpeng G6. Riz, you've been off to China. Yeah, I think you go to China fairly often. So you were there fairly recently again. What can you tell us? What's happening over there?
Simply put, you go there to see the future of electrification.
Yeah.
There's EVs everywhere. Intersections in the middle of the cities are super quiet.
Yeah, right.
Which is great.
I heard that actually. My wife went to China for work not too long ago, and she's never been before, and it was something that she really took note of. Just she was in near Shanghai and in Shanghai as well, and despite the amount of traffic, it was just remarkable how relatively quiet it was, and that's due to the large uptake of EVs, I suppose, compared to here. Yeah, so that's really interesting about hearing about people going to China and their experience of road traffic and what the impact of the large uptake of EVs is on air pollution and noise pollution as well. What sort of, I mean, I haven't been, Riz, so what are you seeing in terms of EV infrastructure? What kind of, are there lots of vehicles there that we're just not seeing here? It's hard to really, it feels like there's a lot of EV models coming to Australian shores, but are there just a lot more that we haven't yet seen?
Yeah, definitely, Sam. When you sort of land there, and I've been there sort of 5 times in the last 12 months, and every time I go, there's all these new and exciting models that I want to go and see because they've just been released. Literally every week there's multiple model launches and stuff. So, and the speed at which those cars come out, they get announced, and within 2 weeks they're being delivered to customers. That's pretty remarkable, and we will get some of those cars, and we've seen some of them already, like the Geely EX5, which was only sort of announced in September last year. And not too long after that, I drove it in November in China, and then it was here by March. So that time frame is accelerating quite a bit. So there's that part of it, but then there's obviously the infrastructure. Charging infrastructure in China is crazy, particularly around sort of the bigger cities. Every car park that you go to along shopping strips, there's fast chargers, there's slow chargers, there's battery swap stations. All the DDs, the rideshare cars that I was in, regardless of how old they are, 4 or 5-year-old with hundreds of thousands of kilometers, they're pretty much all electric because it makes economical sense. And, DD drivers, when they want to have a break or grab something to eat, usually where they park up, there's heaps of charges for them to get a sort of half an hour quick top up, and they can do the rest of the day. So it's very well thought out in China.
Yeah. So there's a high. What is the uptake of new EVs percentage-wise in China? Do you know?
So in Shanghai, new energy vehicles contribute to over 50% of EVs, or historically new energy vehicles, which is plug-in hybrids and electrics. But recent months, you've seen over 50% of battery electric vehicles being registered month on month. So there's a huge demand for them. It's driven by policy, driven by accessibility to the number plates that people need to buy before they purchase the vehicle, which is a lot easier for electric vehicles over ICE cars.
Yeah, right. Okay. And in terms of that's for consumer vehicles. What about commercial vehicles? Is there an equally high uptake of EVs in commercial?
Um, Light trucks and vans, definitely. Some of the heavy haulage stuff.
Mm.
There hasn't been as great of an uptake, but that's about to change because there's some big news coming out of China over the last couple of weeks that there's goals being set that 50% of all the heavy trucks as well need to be electric by 2030. That's only like 5 years away.
How many? Sorry, what percentage?
50%.
50% of new
The heavy trucks need
trucks.
to be
Wow.
electric.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's some big push coming from policymakers, but also companies like battery makers like CATL
Hmm.
that supply batteries into those vehicles is very pro that approach,
Hmm.
and they will make it happen. It's not just the charging. Battery swapping is huge, particularly for heavy vehicles.
Hmm.
It's so much easier to swap a large 600, 700 kilowatt hour sort of rectangular pack by lifting it out and replacing it with a new fully charged pack than it is to wait for a couple of hours for it to charge up. So battery swapping is also becoming a big part, and it's not only for commercial vehicles, but it will be even bigger in light passenger vehicles.
Hmm. It's interesting. I mean, I was talking to Yutong last year, who were at the bus and truck show in Brisbane, and yeah, they've got some pretty big plans for their what they call new energy vehicles, to export them to markets like Australia and in Europe. I think Yutong are actually the largest manufacturer of buses in the world, and they've got something like a 90% share of buses in China. And they were saying that the majority of their new inquiries for new buses are electric. So they're not only the Chinese are not only seem to be dominating the consumer EV market, but they may well be dominating the commercial one as well. So we'll see. Speaking of Chinese EV brands, Xpeng. So I know Tim, we'll chat a little bit about you've had an Xpeng for about a week, I think, but you returned last week. And Riz, you're pretty familiar with which model was it? Xpeng? It was the
G6,
wasn't it? Yeah.
G6, yeah.
So can you just give us a bit of a rundown of what the G6 is?
Yeah, so the G6 is it's Xpeng's first vehicle in Australia. They've actually had a few other models. They're not available in Australia. There was the G3 that I think was their first car, the P7 sedan, but those haven't come to Australia yet. So the G6 is a mid-size SUV. Basically, when I was looking up the specs and stuff, almost exactly the same dimensions as a Model Y on the outside. So same length, exact same wheelbase, height, width, all that kind of stuff. So, and the CEO of the company, the founder of Xpeng, when he founded the company back in 2014, he actually said he was very heavily inspired by Tesla, particularly their decision to open source all their patents at the time, back in 2014. So obviously there's a lot of stuff, as I said, exterior dimensions, also interior. The cabin is very heavily inspired by Tesla. So if you've driven a Tesla, you know how to change gears, put it in the X-Pilot equivalent of autopilot on Tesla. Everything's controlled through the screen, just like you do on a Tesla. You've got the air conditioning, even opening the glove box, that kind of stuff. So very heavily inspired by Tesla, but they've got their own take on things as well. So they've got some features in there that you won't find on a Tesla. But yeah, very roomy, spacious inside, very comfortable, very efficient as well.
I mean, you only recently drove the new Model Y from Tesla only a few weeks ago. So I guess comparing those two models, do you have any views on how they stack up against each other?
Yeah, I'd say it's the Xpeng is definitely cheaper. So that's one thing I was surprised by. Actually, the long range versions are actually quite a bit different. Maybe I think it was about 12,000-13,000 difference. The Xpeng was cheaper. Also, things like if you want some of the advanced self-driving stuff with a Tesla, you've got to pay either 5,000 or 10,000 for the enhanced autopilot or full self-driving package. Whereas Xpeng just includes all their self-driving, auto parking, all that kind of stuff is included with the vehicle price. They don't charge extra for different paint colors. So once you take all that stuff into account, you can probably get an Xpeng G6 for 15, a long range one, probably 15,000, 10, 20,000 less than an equivalent Model Y if you tick all the boxes, sort of thing. So price is definitely a big difference. I'd say overall the Tesla's probably more polished. They're just the software and stuff just generally works really well. I think we've talked about it before that it's still one of the best software systems out there. The Xpeng in the week I had there's a few little quirks and things that I came across, just small things that I think they can fix with software updates. For example, like the map on the central screen, you can sort of have it full screen or you can have it split screen and have driving visualization sort of preview stuff similar to a Tesla as well. But when you do that, the search button just disappears on the map. So I was trying to navigate somewhere and I was like, where's the search button? It's just completely disappeared. So, but you make it full screen again and it just appears again. So there's some little things like that I think Xpeng could work on.
Okay. Yeah. Riz, you've driven both vehicles. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Xpeng G6, I've been a big fan. I wrote a story on it back in 2023 when it first launched at the Shanghai Auto Show. And, thought it looked really sleek. And when it finally came to Australia, I was keen to test drive it. And I agree with what Tim sort of said. His experiences are, sort of comparing it to the Tesla. It's a lot cheaper in many ways. I think it drives really well. It's definitely one of the more polished cars out of China, particularly when it comes to all the bings and bongs that come with most vehicles these days. So it's very refined. My main sort of thoughts are, since I drove it and recently they've launched the 2025 version of the car, which we are unlikely to get until next year. I got a chance to see it in Hong Kong at the Global Brand Night in April, and it's quite a bit of upgrade, particularly when it comes to comfort features, aesthetics, the way sort of the car looks on the road as well. So when you put it into its sort of autopilot equivalent, there's little blue LED lights outside along the mirrors that go blue that show everyone else around you that you're in the autopilot mode, which is a pretty neat feature. It's not exclusive to Xpeng. A lot of other cars are doing it in China, which is really good because people outside need to know what's happening. So I think that feature is pretty important. That's in the 2025 model that I don't think we will see until probably December or January next year.
So blue lights that indicate whether the person is driving or whether the computer is driving the vehicle.
Correct.
And so if I'm driving on the street and I see a blue light, like what should I do differently? Or what do I do with that information?
Just to be aware that,
Is it safer or less safe?
I would
Probably
say
safer, isn't it? Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually got two drivers instead of one. So.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay. So you can be, you can rest a bit more easy if you see that blue light, perhaps.
You think so if the systems are pretty good, which, touching on Xpeng's equivalent to autopilot, it's great because, when you change lanes, you don't need enhanced autopilot like you do in Tesla, which costs $5 grand. So that's a bonus. The thing that I think that needs a little bit of improvement, if not a lot of improvement for Australian conditions, is how the autopilot system behaved when I was driving it. So going around sort of curves on freeways, it would slow down to like 80 kilometers an hour automatically. And that's dangerous when you're on a freeway doing 100, 110 kilometers, whatever the speed limit is. Because our cars currently don't have the blue light. So other people don't know what's going on. And I don't know what's going on either as to why it's slowing down. So that's a bit of work that needs to happen. The cars are very capable. And the only other thing I'll add is their compatibility with Tesla superchargers. So a lot of people that want to buy the G6 are taking that into consideration because at the moment, the G6 does not charge fluidly with the Tesla superchargers.
Okay. All right.
Interesting. I saw on the FAQ yesterday or the other day, Riz, when you sent it, and they are working on a software fix for that, so should roll out soon, hopefully. But there's no timeline yet.
I mean, that's a big bonus if they can use the supercharger network, which of course is one of the key features of owning a Tesla, just having access to that network.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's going to be Xpeng has the potential to be really embraced by, the Australian market, for example? It's hard to kind of gauge where we're at in terms of our Australians. See, it feels like we're on the way to embracing electric vehicles, slowly but surely. Are we well on the way to embracing Chinese EV brands that perhaps we hadn't really heard of? I think BYD has made an exceptional splash into the Australian market. Could XPeng shake things up and become a Tesla competitor in the way that BYD has in Australia?
Yeah, I think you're right. Definitely BYD's come along in the last few years and taken a good foothold. I think one of the things people always look at is, or some of the things are, servicing, dealerships, how easy it is to get the car serviced or repaired if they need to. So I think that's one thing BYD's done particularly well, partnering with Eagers Automotive and things, to just have dealerships and be able to go and do a test drive and see the cars in a lot of places. XPeng, I think, has 2 or 3 in New South Wales and other dealerships around the country. But I think they need to expand if they want to sort of have aspirations to reach the level of BYD.
So if we're looking at what BYD have done to be so successful so far in Australia, because I see them a lot, and they've become pretty ubiquitous, really. Certainly around Sydney and some of the other capital cities. What is it that they have done that a company like XPeng would need to do to try and replicate that? Is it pricing? Is it servicing, as you said? Is it partnerships? Like what's the most important thing for Australian consumers in your view?
It looks like Riz is pretty keen to jump in, so I'll let you jump in, Riz.
I think product lineup is pretty big, in the sense that you can't win off one model in the Australian market, especially when you're competing in a pretty competitive sort of landscape. So you look at the recently launched MG S5, which I think has a $40,490 drive-away price. That's $20,000 cheaper than the G6, and roughly the same with the Tesla Model Y as well. The price points are important, and MG has a pretty, they've got a hatchback, they've got an SUV, they've got a bigger SUV coming, and MG has over 100 dealerships, which Tim touched on earlier, a 10-year warranty, which XPeng currently has some sort of a limited time 10-year offer. All of those things will play a role. Pricing will play a role, having fresh and new product, which is the 2025 G6, but also other more affordable models. Their product lineup that's coming up seems to be on the upper end. So they'll be able to bring the X9, which is sort of a luxury people mover. It'd be surprising for that car to fall under 100 grand in Australia. A lot of tech, amazing car, but it's up the price point that most Australians don't really want to pay at the moment for an electric car, particularly when they're worried about, as Tim touched on earlier, a new brand. Then there's depreciation, a lot of other things associated. Then they want to bring in the G9, which is a bigger electric SUV. That car came, when it was first launched, had a lot of tech in China, and I'm surprised it didn't sell as well as it should have. But that's coming to Australia, or they have plans to bring it into Australia early next year. Once again, an expensive car. What they need to do is look at their success with the Mona, which is a more affordable version of a sedan and SUVs coming that they've launched in China. That's really turned their fortunes around in the Chinese market. And if that car comes to Australia, which they have exhibited at Everything Electric and the Melbourne Motor Show over the last couple of months, that should give them the brand recognition and the everything else that comes with it. Sort of what the BYD Dolphin did for BYD.
Yeah, I think the XPeng Mona MO3 was actually at XPeng store in Mascot in Sydney. If you're in the area and you want to have a look, when I returned the XPeng G6 last week. So
okay, yeah, great, fascinating. Okay, well, let's talk about EV sales, because Tim, you've released the May sales data, I think it is.
Yes,
on the Driven.
We put that up updates the other day.
Yeah,
4 days ago.
So what can you tell us? What's happening?
It was a big rebound in sales, mostly driven by the refreshed Tesla Model Y. I think around 4,000 sales for that. So that pushed the total EV sales up to over 10,000 for the first time in 1 year. So obviously a big rebound in sales there. Percentage wise, I can't remember the percentage figure. percentage of new cars that were EVs.
9.2%.
9.2. Thanks, Riz. So that's again,
It's reasonably good, isn't it?
it is good. We haven't consistently been sort of up over that 10% yet. So that's something I think as we get more of those, the early majority buying EVs, we'll obviously get there in time, like you said. But yeah, no, it's definitely a good rebound. I think it'll be interesting to see how long that demand is that stays high for the Tesla Model Y, the new one. If that continues into July, August, and the second part of the year, or if it's sort of a big hump in early deliveries from people who are keen to buy it, but perhaps there's still backlash from the Tesla brand that's sort of going to dampen demand potentially.
Yes, well, we've spent a few episodes discussing and trying to, I guess, hypothesize, what is the underlying cause of the decline in sales in Teslas globally, but in some areas of the world more than others. And I guess it goes to show that there was some impact on the new Model Y coming out, and that's proven to be pretty popular so far, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it wasn't just the new Model Y this month as well, or in May. Sorry, there was Kia EV5 was over 700. The new Geely EX5 that Riz mentioned was 511, I think, from memory. BYD C-Line 7 was up there. The other BYD models too sold better than they have for the first few months of the year. So Zeal, the Dolphin, the Atto 3 all had pretty good results as well. So it was definitely a good month for EV sales.
Riz?
I wonder with the BYD sales sort of, let's call it, rebounding a little bit as well, but that's off the back of the delivery of the Essential models, which were the cheapest cars that they announced in January, which, a Dolphin starts at under 30,000, an Atto 3 starts at under 40,000. They have quite a bit more in the works. I was with BYD in China last week, and there's a lot of interesting product that is coming our way. So our listeners and readers of The Driven can stay tuned, because they'll be hearing it first as to what's coming up. So it's pretty exciting times for not only BYD, but the whole sort of EV industry and EV adoption as we get to price parity across most different segments in the market.
Any confirmation about the Seagull or a smaller, cheaper model?
There is a cheaper model coming. Can't say whether it's the Seagull or not just yet, but there is a couple of things in the works. And also there's an expansion of the current lineup, which I think will be widely well accepted by the general sort of drivers that are looking at upgrading or getting their first electric car.
Sounds good.
Great. Well, Riz, I know you got to head off soon, but I can't quite let you go until we just touch on the latest Tesla saga. It's my favorite reality TV show, and I just get I think it was The Shovel, which is a satirical newspaper for those who don't know, who published an article this morning saying that they're concerned that there's going to be a global shortage of popcorn after the latest spat between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, which has gone a little bit nuclear overnight at the time of recording of this podcast. Now, we've always speculated as to what the impact is of Musk's political associations on the Tesla brand. I think it's fair to say that there has been some impact, and I think he's even acknowledged that himself. And now we've got a situation where Tesla sales have rebounded, and partly due to the Model Y, which we've driven and we think is fantastic. And so what happens now that we've got this battle of these two, the most wealthy man in the world versus potentially the most powerful man in the world? Tesla shares did slump 15% today already as a result of this Twitter war. What are the implications of this? Are there implications for the Tesla brand? Are they positive? Are they negative? It's very hard to follow.
Look, I'll say this, that Tesla makes great products. It doesn't matter what most people think or say. When you get in the cars, when you look at the products that they make, they're phenomenal. They're reliable. It works. Now, obviously, there's been this situation that's occurred. I don't know whether Tesla's engineering side and the stuff that, how they produce those products has really changed that much. So there's quite a bit in the pipeline that isn't commonly being spoken about in the media, which I'm pretty excited about in the second half of this year, because that could change, EV landscape, not only in the US, but also here in Australia with some of the more affordable models that are in the works, the technology that they're bringing in, the expansion of the supercharger network, and sort of what's really driven adoption of EVs in the US and outside of that. Most of the manufacturers in the US have adopted Tesla's supercharger port, the NACS ports. So that means that owners have heavy reliance on Tesla's infrastructure, and which means that they can make and produce and deliver and deploy more of that. So yes, there's a lot of sort of political unrest at the moment off the back of what's recently happened, but there's a few things that, may not grab media headlines, but as an example, in a week's time from when we're recording this, Tesla will launch their robotaxi in Austin, Texas. Now that's going to open the eyes of quite a lot of people about what that technology actually is. When you can book a ride that's cheaper than an Uber, I think most people would book a ride that's cheaper than an Uber. If it's reliable and all the rest of it, and then they'll quickly deploy to many other parts of the US. We've already seen a video of that surface here in Melbourne, where they were testing that system, and it seems to be going pretty well. If the political games that are being played are going to stop that from happening in the US, then I think Tesla still has global markets to look at where they can launch it in cities. China in particular, as much as people say that it's difficult to launch those sort of things because, there's rules and regulation as to where you put the training data for the AI systems that train the autopilot or full self-driving. Tesla's proven that they've been able to bypass that by launching the city street version, that they used the videos that were publicly available to train the model with in the US and then deploy that model into China. So I think Tesla's focus is now on full self-driving, and their cheaper and more affordable products that are going to be coming up, I think, will save a little bit of what's sort of been lost already from a brand recognition point of view. But we've got to watch this space.
Yeah, watch this space. We will. There's been a rebound, but the sales is still below this time last year in 2023. I think partly you could put that down to increase competition, and then you can speculate as to what the rest of the makeup of that is. But yeah, let's watch this space. All right, Riz, I know you've got to jump off for another call, but thanks so much for joining us on the Driven Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Tim, you've recently taken out the Hyundai Insta electric vehicle for a spin on their launch in Australia. Was it their launch?
Yeah, that's right, Sam. Yeah, they invited some media to a launch event last week, and basically that was a 2-day thing where we got to start driving the car. They went through a presentation and all the specs and features and things, and then there was a drive program that took us down towards Wollongong. We stayed overnight down at Austin and then got to drive the car back the next day, and Tanya and I shot some short little videos of it, which you can find on the Driven socials.
Yeah, no, I saw those obviously, and I encourage listeners to check out the Driven socials to see those videos on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. But in terms of the actual drive itself, I mean, what were your impressions? What did you like, and what didn't you like?
I think there's a lot of things I like about the Insta. It's one of the smallest EVs out there. The only one that I could find that was actually smaller that we have at the moment is the Fiat 500e. That's about 20 centimeters shorter length front to back.
So it's shorter than the Dolphin?
Yeah. So the cars that people think of as small EVs, like the Dolphin, the MG4, the GWM Aura, they're all sort of, between 30 or 40 centimeters longer than the Insta. Some of them, I can't remember, maybe 10, 20 centimeters wider. So they're actually a little bit bigger. But the Insta does a lot with the space it has. You can comfortably fit 4 adults in. It's only a 4-seater, not a 5-seater. So if you've got a family with 3 kids, or you want to bring 4 passengers plus a driver, you can only bring 3 with the Insta. So that's a downside, I guess. But the 4 passengers or 4 people in the car can fit quite comfortably. There's a lot of space, including in the back. So I tested this out myself, and I've seen Jack from Fully Charged, who's 6'6", I think he is, comfortably sit behind his own driving position in the back seats with leg room and headroom left over. So that just goes to show it's a pretty spacious car for the size. In terms of the driving, I think it's drives really well, like a lot of the Hyundai Kia vehicles. It does the one pedal driving really well, really smoothly. The adaptive cruise control, which is standard across the Insta range, works well. I think there wasn't that much I didn't like about it, to be honest. I mean, for the price range, it starts from just below 40,000, so there is some hard plastics throughout the cabin, but that's probably that's what people probably expect for a car in that price range, and I think it's going to be hard wearing over time. So it's not necessarily a negative, just that's just what you get.
And so comparing it to I guess its most obvious competition, which would be vehicles like the Dolphin. And what else would it be?
Yeah, I guess the MG4. So
yeah.
MG4s, the BYD Dolphin is the cheapest at the moment. As Riz was saying, you can get the Essentials range for starting under 30. I haven't actually seen that one in person, so I can't comment on how the interior of that one fares against the Insta. But with the Insta for that price, starting from just below 40, you get everything included. You get built-in navigation, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, those kind of things. As I said before, adaptive cruise control, things like that, which in some of those cheaper models, the manufacturers sort of reserve some of those features for the higher price range. So even though you could get a BYD for under 30, you might not get all those features, for example. I know with the MG4, which I've driven, for example, a while ago, the base model MG4 doesn't have any sort of connectivity. It doesn't have its own SIM card, so you get no sort of built-in streaming audio or navigation, those kind of features, which you can use your smartphone for, but depending on what you want to use, you do miss out on some of those features.
So who is the Insta for? Is it for young urbanites? Is it for downsizers? Is it first-time EV buyers? Like, who do you see buying this vehicle?
I think it's got a lot of potential market there. It was interesting. One of the things that I was sort of disappointed by was Hyundai saying that they don't think it's going to be a volume seller. I think just because it's a bit of a niche car in terms of the size and it's not the cheapest. So if someone actually wants to buy the cheapest EV, they're probably going to go for a BYD or an MG4 or those kind of things. But yeah, to answer your question, I think people who are looking for a really compact little car, but as I said, which is very spacious inside and practical. I think people living in cities and have tight parking spaces or just enjoy driving smaller cars should take a look at that. Potentially people who are downsizing from a big car to a small car. Maybe the kids have left home and they don't need such a big car anymore. I think it could suit quite a lot of people, but time will tell obviously how well it sells, but as I said, Hyundai doesn't think it's going to be a volume seller, which is a bit of a disappointment.
Interesting they were saying that. Is there are they putting that to the price point that they put it at? I
think they just their talk around it on the launch event was they just think it's more of a niche product, I guess. Even though it is their most affordable EV at the moment, they just think it's more of a niche product, and they said that the bigger Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kona EV were going to remain their top sellers.
Right. Okay.
So
yeah, I mean, I was going to ask whether it's going to be the sort of electric version of the i30 moment, where the i30 was a car which really broke Hyundai into at least the Australian market, a hugely popular car. I remember seeing almost exclusively i30s and Getz on the Hyundai Getz on the road. But it sounds like they've already answered that question for us, which is the no.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it could become one of those cult cars that a lot of people end up buying if word gets out. But I think I don't think you'll see a lot of them on the road. But you will see some soon, hopefully. They're already on sale. You can already go and test drive it, and I think they sold 50 or it's actually 100, I think, in May. So there's quite a few out there.
Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, I just by looking at it, I think it looks really good.
Yeah, it's a cool looking.
It's a cool looking car. I mean, all of the other sort of VV models, like the Dolphin and like the MG4, I think they're cool looking cars too. So I guess that's not an exclusive trait to the Insta, but I guess we'll see how that goes. But it's good to see more models coming in. So eventually the prices will eventually go down as well.
Yeah, I think we'll continue to see more models. There's I think last count on the models page, we're over 100 models are currently available, and still another close to 30 I think it was that are coming out in the next 6 to 12 months. So yeah, we're going to continue to see more and more models coming out here.
Great. All right, is there anything else that we should be discussing before we wrap it up?
Not that I can think of, Sam. I think that's a pretty good summary of what's been happening lately.
Yeah, I think we've touched on quite a few things. And yeah, we'll have to go and watch this space, as we've said, regarding how the EV sales goes in Australia. It'd be great to see that sort of continue to hit that 9-10% mark, at least for a few consistent months. But with these new models, that always increases the chances of that happening. But in the meantime, we will continue to report on it. And thank you very much for joining the Driven podcast today and for listening. Please go to our website and check out the latest EV sales data, which we publish monthly in great detail. And you can also read about those reviews of the Xpeng G6 and the Hyundai Insta. In the meantime, take care of yourself, and thanks for listening.